So one of the big things that we love to do at my office is put on events because let's face it, our healthcare is a mess and there's a lot of misinformation out there. And what I love to do is provide education so that it can impact people's lives to maybe live a different way, find different education out there that makes them think of different ways of like improving their health. So Allison came to our big event. We had a big event. We flew in a speaker and she came to our big event and made a lot of changes. And I'm excited for you guys to hear her story. So first, tell us a little bit about your experience with Dr. Pam Popper at the big event.
Well, gosh, I took a lot of notes. Uh, I learned a lot, I feel like. I mean, she opened my eyes to food and nutrition in a way that I think tangentially I was aware of, but not consciously aware of,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. It
Yeah.
wasn't in the forefront of my mind. I mean, I actually remember now in hindsight, my mom started this Meatless Monday when I was in high school, and we would have, and it was, I don't know, kind of a movement back then.
Hmm.
Um, but I never incorporated it into my lifestyle,
Yeah.
and I had this idea that protein's only in meat or eggs
Yeah.
or maybe nuts. So it really opened my eyes.
Yeah, I remember when I started learning more, and it's kind of like I knew fruits and vegetables were important, but it's like you just didn't know how important. And even through all of my schooling, because let's just face it, you just don't get a lot of education in nutrition. Even as medical doctors, you don't get a lot of education. And there's so many like this fad and this fad and this fad, and it makes it really confusing. And one of the things I loved about Dr. Pam Popper, I followed her for so long, is just the simplicity of everything and then just how much she researches everything. So like it's like the totality of all the research and what does it really truly say. And so I knew bringing her in, it was going to be an amazing event. But I had the same when I started having a lot of health stuff going on and I started doing a lot of research. I was like, okay, this totally makes sense, but why is this not being pushed? Like, why is this not like being
Right.
educated out there? Like, I don't get it. And it's not like it's super complicated at all.
Sorry. Had to confiscate something from my dog. So sorry.
That's okay. So, what were some of your big takeaways from the event?
I came home and immediately watched Knives Over Forks or
Forks
Forks
over
Over Knives.
knives.
Yeah, sorry. And that was I mean, she referenced that a lot in her speech. And I actually downloaded to my desktop the Esselstyn, eating guide. So I would have it as a quick reference. And I read through that. And I just really, I don't know, it just really changed the whole way I'm thinking about and approaching food. Um, and I come from a family that is very food centric, right? We're at breakfast, we're thinking about dinner. At dinner, we're thinking about what we're going to eat this weekend. And we eat well. And, as I've gotten older, my metabolism has changed. It's gotten harder, and I'm definitely in the middle of menopause. And I'm gaining weight, and I don't know. I've struggled. I lost weight a few years ago, and I think I mentioned to you before I was on this. For sake of ease, I'll call it a diet, although the program does not tout itself as such. It's a lifestyle, and I will say the lifestyle very closely mimics Forks Over Knives, except for there's a big emphasis on protein as a meat or an egg, and so. But it was a lot of vegetables eating,
Hmm.
and a lot. I realized back then I'm under vegetabling my diet, right?
Hmm.
And so I kind of got out of that habit again and gained some of the weight back. And my frustration has been, and I really like my doctor, don't get me wrong, but she told me I need to lose 10 pounds, but didn't give me any tools to do it,
Yeah.
right? And so I got stressed out about that. And instead of losing 10 pounds, I gained 5 pounds. And then I showed up in August at my doctor's appointment, practically in tears. And she's like, it's no big deal. You can do it. Okay, let me give you a different goal. I want you to lose 6 pounds in 4 months, and I'll see you then. And if you don't lose it, she actually said, if you don't lose it, then I'm going to put you on Weight Watchers. That was her solution.
That's
And
so
I don't want to
great.
be on Weight Watchers.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's a lifestyle that works for everyone.
Yep.
I mean, it works for some people. Obviously, it's a successful program that's been around for a long time, but I didn't want to do that. And I think this Pam Popper thing was kind of serendipitous that it happened when it did. And um, the biggest change I have made truly is cutting out processed foods,
Yeah.
right? Like I felt like, what's the big deal if I eat 4 potato chips, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, because I keep it in my house for my husband and my son. I just want a little salty snack, and I'm not going
Hmm.
to sit down and eat a whole bag or a half a bag or even a full serving. I just want like the taste of it,
Yeah.
right? I've really, except for protein bars that I buy these vegan, plant-based ones, whatever, I really don't eat a lot of processed foods anymore. And so the weight has just kind of fallen off. I mean, I look back at the calendar 2 months ago, I think was the talk, right?
Yeah, almost exactly.
And I got on the scale Sunday and I'd lost 10 pounds just from implementing these small changes
Changes.
and didn't give up meat. I still eat meat, but I eat a lot less of it, I would
Yeah.
say. Like if I'm eating it, I eat a smaller portion, or if I eat it, I'm not eating it at lunch and dinner. It's maybe just one meal of the day,
Yeah.
right? And I'm reading labels even more than I was before. Like I didn't realize there was so much protein in green peas, right?
Yeah.
And I just happened to find some in my freezer and I was like, "Oh my gosh." So like one day for lunch, I ate a big bowl of green peas and I was full. And that I think that was the other thing. There was a slide that she had in her presentation where she showed you a graphic of how much your stomach fills up from proteins and a little bit of vegetables or a lot of vegetables and fruits, right?
Yep.
And you're satisfied and you're full longer. And that really resonated with me.
Yeah.
So, and I like food and I like to eat. And so
Yeah.
it's been it was not a difficult change. I think the most radical though was the elimination of processed
Yeah.
foods and then
And I
less
don't
meat.
think it needs to be radical changes for a lot of people. And I think that's what overwhelms people is like, first of all, there's not a plan.
Right,
We're in this hope, like, let's hope that we lose it, but
right.
like, there's no plan to do it. Like, if we have a plan, then I can stick to it and see if it works, make adjustments, those kind of things. And when it's from a weight loss type stuff, it's easier to come up with a plan for something like that because even just like take out processed food, add more vegetables, into what you're already doing, like that's huge right there. Like it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be super, super complicated. Or like I'm going to only eat meat once a day, and I'm not going to eat it, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And there's a lot of other ways that we can get protein. There's a lot of ways of doing it, and it's a process of like finding the recipes. Like for me, gosh. The recipes now are so much better compared to when I started my journey in my late 20s because I had to like when you have health issues, like that's
Mhm.
where it becomes frustrating because literally you need to get to someone that's going to be able to really help you navigate that because there could even be
Right.
healthy foods that are inflaming your body and you don't even
Right.
realize it and you don't even know. And so
Right.
there's places that we send people to when they have way more health, like autoimmune health type stuff. But when it's just like even just being in like menopause, perimenopause, there's a lot of things that you can do. And what we don't even realize in that the processed food in this country is so different than any other country.
Mhm.
So different. We put so much more crap in it, so much more things to make you addicted to it. And it is so bad. I mean,
Yeah.
even like I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I'm like, the pasta that you get in Italy is very different than the pasta that you get here. Pasta here is like processed food. It's like so, it's crap. It's made from
Right.
like what are they, corn that's been, I mean, it's just crap. So,
Right.
it's just you have to be so much careful. But some of the recipes now that are out there are amazing because I'm a foodie. Like I like food. I'm not okay, I'm just gonna go and eat like sweet potatoes and that's gonna be my meal.
Or
Like
my
I
or
can
my
do it
bowl
ever
of
so
green peas.
often,
Yeah,
but
right,
I want
right,
like the gourmet meal.
right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's one thing. I mean, I think the day I ate my bowl of green peas was just out of convenience,
Yes.
but it was perfectly filling and
Yeah.
fine. And in a pinch, you can do stuff like that and then balance it other days with a more gourmet meal.
Yeah.
So
And that's totally fine. But like that's the big thing is I mean, unfortunately in our healthcare system, it's like there is no plan. They don't know. Like that's part of the
No.
problem is they don't know. And even in my industry, from like a physical therapy perspective, they still don't know because you get someone, and it's like, I mean, it's, go lose weight. It's like, oh, you have arthritis. It's like the same thing. It's like,
Right.
but is it really coming from arthritis or is there something else that's going on? Like we've got to dive
Right.
in a little bit deeper.
Well, and I had been working with a personal trainer earlier this year, and he said, the older we get, the harder it is to digest meat. So he's like, you really probably should cut meat out of your diet. And I was like, yeah, right. Like, whatever. And I feel bad. I mean, I didn't say that to him, but I mean, in my head, I was
That's in
like,
your
no,
head just for thinking,
yeah,
yeah,
there's no way I'm going to cut out meat. And then coming to Pam Popper's talk, I was like, oh, this is really a thing,
yeah.
actually. And so that's when the light bulb went off for
Well, and think
me.
about it. Like, think of like a long time ago, we lived like a long time ago
Mhm.
where you lived off the land. Like you lived
Right.
off of like, and getting meat was a special thing. And then when you see like even like the Roman Empire and all those kind of things, like all of a sudden, if you look at them, they were fat because they
Yeah.
had all this meat and everything. And then you had all the people around them, all the peasants that were around them that ate off the land and they were skinny. And
Yeah.
so, like, you start looking at this, you're like, okay, this totally makes sense. But we
Right.
also like engineer our food so
Well,
much
that's the
with
thing. I mean,
all the seed oils and everything that's
right.
out there that's just crap that's making us sick. Like, honestly, we did not have type 2 diabetes. It was called adult onset diabetes. That was
Mhm.
type 2 diabetes. We're getting them in kids that are like 3 years old.
Right.
This is a food-based thing.
Right. Right. Well, and I think too with the meats, you think about the poultry and the beef industry and the antibiotics and the hormones that they put in meats. And if you don't know, you don't know, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and I actually had the privilege of working for a poultry company probably 15 years ago. And that's when I learned about, no antibiotics and no fillers and whatever. And so I did already make that change in our lifestyle. But we were still buying chicken, and I still do. I mean, I'm not making my family do what I'm doing,
Yeah.
but I buy the better, no hormones, no, organic
And even
chicken.
if you do that, like I still wonder because I do the
I
same
do
thing.
too.
And I'm like, okay,
I
so
do.
literally like 10 years ago, it wasn't two chicken breasts that were like so big that I cut in half because it's so big. Because if they're that big, what's happening is they're feeding them processed food, processed
Mhm.
corn, like they feed
Right.
us processed food. What happens? We get bigger faster. It disrupts our hormones, all the things that you're seeing that's happening with the kids. And
Yeah.
so that's why they have to put antibiotics in those things. So they're still feeding them processed, and they may say plant-based, but it's still processed corn, which is
Right.
making them grow faster and get fatter and bigger faster. And so
Yep.
I still wonder, even with
Yes.
that. And I can
Right.
tell you and I don't eat a lot of meat, but I've had to add a little bit back in. But when I would go to like a farm and grab meat from a farmer, just how I felt after that is completely different than getting
Mhm.
food from like the grocery
The
store.
grocery store. Right.
And I mean,
Yeah.
it makes a difference. You can see the difference. And it's just really
Yeah.
sad because it's hard to find, even when you go to the best places. And, we have the means to go do that, but most people
Right.
don't. And like, not
Right.
most people, but like, we're just the people that can't afford it are just getting sicker and sicker because
Right.
what are they eating?
Right.
But
The
honestly,
rest.
at this point, with the way the prices are, it's way cheaper to make a healthy meal, even without meat, than it is to go to McDonald's. It's cheaper.
True. Yeah, that's true. See my son coming in my window.
Well, love the conversation, and I
Yeah.
love that it impacted your life. And that's ultimately like our biggest goal is that's what we want. We want to bring awareness so that people can make changes, and it's not like shoving things down people's throat. It's just providing education for them to go and take it and make changes in their life. And that's the whole point of us putting all these
Oh
events
yeah. I
on.
mean, I can't wait. I think my follow-up doctor's appointment is either next week or the week after, and I can't wait to go in and tell her what I did. And so she can share it with her patients.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a little concerning that I had two appointments and the message was lose weight, the first time, and the second was lose weight or else I'm putting you on Weight Watchers, like a threat, you know? So that's not
Which
helping
doesn't
me.
help you at all. It makes you even more
Right.
stressed and like more
Oh,
like
it did.
anxiety versus,
Right.
okay, let's sit down, let's come up with a plan. So
Right.
let's start here and then come
Right.
back. Let's see if you've implemented the plan.
Right.
But they just aren't equipped. They don't have the education, and the ones
Right.
that do, and it's not a knock. Like there's amazing doctors. We need doctors.
Absolutely.
But there's
Yeah.
just a lot. They just don't learn that much, and the medical system is so intertwined with the pharmaceutical drug companies, and that's what they learn.
Right.
That when people like when the doctors have a health issue, then and they like, I'm not going this route. I'm going to figure this out on my own. That those are the ones that tend to like start producing a lot more change. But it's
Yeah.
not like you don't have enough time in the doctor's office when you take insurance and all these things because you literally only get paid for 15 minutes. It's
Right.
hard to have a conversation, go, let's come up with a game plan in a
Exactly.
15-minute conversation when you're coming
Right.
in for all these other things too on top of that. And then there's all the paperwork. So the system's
Yes.
not designed to make you healthy. The system's designed like it's like, oh, let's do preventative care. Okay, let's just go and do tests and hope that you don't have anything versus let's come up
Right.
with a game plan to make you well.
Yes. Yeah.
So, well, awesome. What would you tell someone if they're like on the fence on coming into, any one of our events that we do?
I mean, just do it, honestly. I mean, make the time. I wish I could have brought more people with me, honestly. I mean, oh, it was just so educational and so informative,
Yeah.
right? And and really,
And
I mean,
simple, like
yes,
not
and
like
simple.
talking over people's heads with all these, like it was just simple.
Right. And I mean, I think that Dr. Popper is very relatable too,
Yep.
right? Like she's been on her own journey and there's a reason she got where she is. And so, and just seeing the evolution of her life and her nutrition and her exercise and how she looks is inspiring, right?
Yep.
I mean, for her age, I mean, I don't know how old she is, but older than I am or you are, and
Yeah.
she
She's
looks
close to
fantastic.
80.
She is.
I think she's in her 70s.
I would have said like early 70s, late 60s. Like, so see,
Mm.
look how great she looks just because of probably the lifestyle that she's adopted. I
Oh,
mean, some
yeah.
genetics, but I do think that your lifestyle has a lot to do with it.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
so anyway, no, I can't reiterate enough how informative it was.
Yeah.
So,
We're
anyway,
at some point, she wants to work with us. So at some point, we'll probably be pulling some of what she's doing into our office. I just don't have the capacity right now to do
mhm.
it. But it's probably going to be a year away,
Yeah.
honestly, to get to do it. But she's was so impressed with everything that we did and like how our messages were so similar.
Uh-huh.
And she was like, "Oh my God, we've got to work together at some point." So we've had phone calls, and I was just like, "I've got to hire someone else to kind of take that piece over." But
Sure.
there's ways of incorporating a lot of what she's doing into our office, and I'd love to do that because I just don't think I've tried to find people in Dallas. It's really
Mhm.
hard.
Sure.
It's really hard because, I literally was in a conversation. It was funny because Cherie, we had this event and it was like a Friendsgiving type thing with like a lot of healthcare providers that were more holistic. And Cherie, one of our office staffs in our office, brought us someone who's a nutritionist. And I literally was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, so what's your philosophy? Like, are you plant-based? And I mean, like, it was just a conversation. And she just like, no. And I was like, oh gosh, wow. Okay. Like I didn't even mean to shut off the conversation, but I was like, I
Right.
don't even understand how a nutritionist can't be plant-based. Doesn't mean that you
Oh,
aren't eating meat or anything like plant-based. Like, are you
right.
are you focusing on plants? Like that's really where people need to be focusing on. Doesn't mean that you're not, eating meat or other things,
Sure.
but it literally like shut her down. I was like, ooh, she's probably not like
Right.
the right
Well,
person.
and truthfully, I mean, I hired a nutritionist earlier this year to help me, and it did not help me at all.
Yeah.
So I was pretty disappointed in that. And they kind of give you a guideline of eating, but the guideline of eating, it was too broad, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and then, but you think about this in terms of broad. All I said was I eliminated processed foods. And that's pretty simple, right? Like
Yes.
you boil it down to one thing
Yeah.
and you don't realize I don't know, I guess I was eating more processed foods than I realized.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I still look, I still drink a cup of coffee every day and I put a little creamer in it, and surely that's got some preservatives in it. But I mean, the changes that I made were so simple and small.
Yeah.
Do I not ever eat a chip again? Yes, I eat a
Oh,
chip,
I'm sorry. We live in
but
Texas, chips and salsa.
right, it can't, but it's just I've really eliminated a lot of that, and then some of the meat, and then added many more fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it
um,
doesn't have to be hard. And the sad thing is when you look at like the nutrition, like what they learn in school, it's so industry, like the milk industry's in there, the meat industry's in there, the processed foods industry's in there.
yeah,
Like they're not really learning. And it drives me bananas when everyone says like it's science based. And I'm like, if it were, then doctors wouldn't be doing as many MRIs that they're doing. They'd be sitting
right.
down and having conversation and kind of figuring things out and not
Well,
basing
we wouldn't have
everything
weight
on
loss drugs.
testing.
I mean, we wouldn't have weight loss drugs if
Yes,
we, if,
exactly. I mean, so like, and even those, like, what's the research
right,
on that? I mean, what was the research on like all the COVID stuff that we did, and now you're seeing all this stuff, and like, I'm like, this is crazy because the
right.
MI, I mean, like, you just go look at the history of like of some of the stuff that they're doing, and I'm like, this is crazy. It's not. This is not healthy. And there's a lot of lies. And so, I mean, again, that's the reason why I love putting events on, just to open people's eyes up
Mhm.
to really like what does the research really say? What's really working for
Right.
people? So it's why I love doing stuff like this. So, but thank you so much for coming on because I know your story is going to help other people and realize like, oh wow, I can make other changes and it can be as simple as this to impact someone's life because it totally will. Your story will
Well,
inspire
yeah, and
others.
I mean, obviously my goal is weight loss, but just feeling better in general. And I think it's also, I mean, eliminated some GI issues that I was having too, and that I didn't realize maybe would be linked to
Mm-hmm.
processed food. And I don't think that was the meat. I do think it was the processed
Yeah.
foods. And so, I just think, gosh, that move, it was the combination of Dr. Popper, Forks Over Knives, downloading the eating guide, that's free, by the way.
Yeah.
Like it's free. You don't have to pay any money. And I've paid money over the years without success. So,
Yeah.
and I'm finding success on my own just making these. I mean, I bought my ticket to come here, Dr. Popper, of
Yeah.
course, but I mean, I'd go listen to her anytime.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was great. I'm glad,
Probably have her
glad,
down again.
I'm really glad I went. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, you bet. You bet.